So I figured I could just go ahead and film this video, which is basically the books that made me a reader. So it's expected that all the books on this list I read when I was a child, and reading them was what actually gave me that push. Someone who consumes words, who reads for joy, who reads for pleasure, and I figured I wanted to share it with you. But before I start on this video, pause this video right now and go to the comments, down to the comments, and let me know what is at least one book. It can be more than one, but at least one book that made you a reader. The very first book on my list is Without a Silver Spoon by Eddie Roy. I read this book when I was like, I think like 7, 8, I think. Yeah, I think I was like 8 or 9. And in this, like, I just loved this. This book was about Hooray, who is this poor boy, but very hardworking. And I think was working with either a teacher or a relative. And there was an accusation of theft that was leveled against him. But because he had been such an honest boy, nobody believed it, because they're like, no, Ure will never do this. And I know, like, present me knows that that is not realistic, that we live unfortunately in a society that will buy that. But 9-year-old Noria just had all the feels, and I remember flipping the pages wanting Ure to be vindicated, and when it brought me so much joy. So yes, Without a Silver Spoon by Eddie Roy.
It was awesome.
Second book on my list is Sugar Girl by Kola Oladipe. This okay, so I read it when I was 7, and this followed Ralia, who ran away from home, and when she ran away, she ran into the forest, she encountered a witch, and it was just all this old thing. And I remember like reading that book and being so fucking terrified, because I was like, oh my god, Ralia, that is a witch. I was so terrified of witches after reading that book. I'm telling you, like, why on earth they thought it was a good idea to give a 7-year-old child that, because I think it was one of the books in my school library, and I was just like, this doesn't make any sense. But at the same time, I really enjoyed it. I also recall that not only was the witch, in quote, really scary, but I also felt that she was not really maintaining her hair properly. And younger Noria wanted to enter this book and offer her like shampoo and conditioner so she could wash her hair, because it was really tangled and messy. And of course, I do know that that speaks to so many things about our perception, at least at that time, about locks and people with locks. And present me is like, there is so much wrong with that depiction. But 7-year-old Noria didn't know. All she knew was that she wanted to offer this woman shampoo and conditioner.
Wash your fucking hair.
Then I read the Babysitters Club series by Anne M. Martin. I loved it. Oh my god, do you understand how much I loved it? Which is, when you consider it, it's insane, because your girl, right, Nigerians don't really have babysitters like that.
See, now that's some white people stuff right there.
It's either your mother is babysitting you, or your aunt is babysitting you, or your uncles, you know, relatives. There are so many people to babysit that the concept of teenagers being given the opportunity to babysit kids and getting paid for it, my Nigerian mind was blown. I was just like, this happens? This was as blown as I was when I finally realized that Ginger Bear was not actually bear. For a long time, I was convinced that Ginger Bear was actually beer. So the first time I was like, oh my god, I'm old enough to take ginger beer. And a friend gave me like, what do you mean old enough? I'm like, this is just carbonated fizzy. Where is the beer? Anyway, Noria, baby, I'm going to like, I wish I could go back into the past to be able to tell younger me that, girl, you have no idea what the fuck ginger beer tastes like. Like, trust me, it's beyond your expectation. But anyway, I really did enjoy Babysitters Club. I loved it. Claudia was my absolute favorite, followed closely, strongly, by Stacy, then I think Marianne, then I think Kristen. I love them, but Claudia was bae. So needless to say, the Babysitters show that premiered on Netflix, your girl binged it in that same evening. Like, I started it when I got back home from work. I think it was about, say, 8 p.m. and I binged it until like 6 the next day. I slept at 7 a.m. the next day, but I did not mind, because I repeat, Babysitters Club was my childhood. I fell in love with those books, and I fell in love with reading. Another series that like drove my love for reading and made me a reader has to be the Sweet Valley High series by Francine Pascal. Now, I know that it was later, much later, I realized that Francine Pascal did not write all the series. For the longest time, I was convinced that she was the most prolific author on earth, in the planet. But later, I discovered that she was like, she had writers ghostwriting for her, but she was like overseeing the entire process. But anyway, I really, really loved those twins. Like Elizabeth and Jessica, they held my heart. I was following their stories, especially because Sweet Valley High was the series that it was just crazy. Like, and that's when I discovered that there were various different ghostwriters writing it. It made so much sense because sometimes you get this sweet, funny, sometimes it's all catty, and sometimes it's a thriller. Like, I can never forget when, who were those twin girls that looked exactly like Jessica and Elizabeth and basically tried to take over Jessica and Elizabeth's life? Like, they tried taking over their life. They tried killing them in this house of mirrors, and the whole plan was for them to, like, you know, come out. Like, they all go in, they sneak their way into the house of mirrors with Jessica and Elizabeth, and then they are the ones that come out after they've killed the twins in there. And I think they died, or one of them died, like, not the twins, the imposter girls. I just remember reading that and be like,
that's some crazy shit.
and like, now I realize, like, now that I hate, and I'm like, yo, there were so many ghostwriters. It makes so much sense because the tone of that series shifted all over the place. But I loved Sweet Valley High so much that I read Sweet Valley High, right? I read Sweet Valley Junior High. I read all the Sweet Valley Twins books. I read the Sweet Valley University books. Like, your girl was Sweet Valley trash. And they totally, completely made me a reader because I was just like, okay, more books. That's how it was. But speaking of twins that I loved, I think I would just move on to the Two of a Kind series that featured Mary-Kate and Ashley, because your girl was obsessed with Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen. Obsessed. Oh my god, I watched all the movies. When in Rome although I probably should do a rewatch because it's been a while. I'm like, When in Rome, Holiday in the Sun, The Challenge. Oh my god. It's because of The Challenge I always say zero, zilch, nada, el grande, nada. If you've watched that movie, you will totally know the scene where that was from. But anyway, I was obsessed with Mary-Kate and Ashley. I watched all their movies, I watched the TV shows, I read the books. The Two of a Kind series, spectacular. I was also so obsessed that I actually joined their fan club. That was the first time I actually went on the internet. Like, I think, was it 1999 or 2001 or 2000? I can't remember. But that was the first time I went on the internet. Like, I went on the internet and I met a lot of fucking ass creeps in the Yahoo chats. Oh god, Yahoo chat was just...
Pedophile website?
Anyway, I joined the fan club. Like, I went to the internet and I joined the fan club. I was that big a fan of Mary-Kate and Ashley. So Two of a Kind series definitely sealed my love for reading. The same thing goes with the Sabrina the Teenage Witch series. I was collecting those books. I had those books up until I think book 36 or 37. I was, oh my god, I was a big Sabrina the Teenage Witch fan. Like I said, I read all the books in the series. I watched the TV show. I watched the animation series. I read the comics. Like, Sabrina was my girl, and Melissa Joan Hart was depicting her perfectly well. Like, I watched Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. I was like, oh cool, okay, not bad. But Sabrina, I can still, like, you can still put the Melissa Joan Hart Sabrina series on TV today, and I will sit my ass down and watch it. Like, I was that big a fan, and I was collecting the books very, very studiously. They made me fall in love. Like, I would not be here talking about books, talking about all the things I love and I geek out about, if not for these books. So yeah. Another book that made me a reader is definitely Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. I don't think any Nigerian child grew up without reading that book, and I know that there are layers to the story that I understand better as an adult than I did as a child, but there's just a purity with Chinua Achebe's writing that has you hooked even when you're young. And I remember following Okonkwo's story and just I felt such pain and such sadness. I adore that book. It will always hold me in my heart. Like, interestingly enough, I read it before I read Wole Soyinka's Ake, right? But Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart, spectacular. Ake is also very good, but I had become a reader by the time I got into Ake. But Things Fall Apart, yes. The next book that made me read, The Gods Are Not to Blame by Olarotimi. See, me, I was reading this book and to me, it read like a soap opera, right? You had this boy who basically, was coming in and then he accidentally, like apparently there was this guy that fought him on the road. He killed the guy. He got to a crossroads. Something happened. The people made him king. They gave him the wife of the former king, right? As his new bride, and all of that was happening, and then disaster came, and then they did some divination, and the priest talked to the gods, and the gods basically said that, you see, that guy is guilty of regicide, patricide, and has been fucking his mother. And I was like,
What the fuck?
younger me was shook. I was like, this is primetime drama, telenovelas. You all need to talk to Olarotimi. Let him write for you. This shit is outrageous. Like, that was what I was saying. I was shooken as a child. I was even more shooken as a teenager when I finally realized, when I read Oedipus Rex, and I realized that Olarotimi basically copied Oedipus Rex and pasted it and gave them Yoruba names. I was like, there you go. And I'm like, that was my face. So yeah. Technically, I would say Oedipus Rex made me a reader, but I read it after I read The Gods Are Not to Blame, hence the reason why that's what made the list. For the longest time, I had no idea that it was an adaptation. I thought it was an original story, and I was just like, my mind is blown. But that was a solid adaptation because Olarotimi was able to center it right in Yoruba land, and it worked together. But a part of me felt very betrayed when I realized that Sophocles was the one that actually originated the story. But yeah, so Gods Are Not to Blame definitely made me a reader. Eze Goes to School and its sequel, Eze Goes to College by Onuowa Ezeogu, made me, were yet another set of books that made me a reader. I loved Eze Goes to School. Like, oh my god. I think that part of the reason why I became the kind of student that I am, was because of Eze Goes to School, because Eze was just somebody that loved knowledge, that loved collecting it, that loved knowing things, and I connected so much with him as a character, and it was a big deal for me. So yeah, definitely Eze Goes to School.
I love it!
Then there's Drummer Boy by Cyprian Ekwesi, which followed Akin, this boy who was born blind and loves to drum, and is such a talented drummer, and he brings joy to so many people, everybody around him, everybody that hears him drum, they dance and they feel so happy. But himself, Akin the Drummer Boy, is not happy, is always very sad. And that was the first time I realized that you could create joy for others whilst being miserable yourself.
Some deep shit.
It took several years, me being much older and dealing with a depression, and nobody was able to tell because I was able to cloak it so well. That was when it hit me. That was when I realized that, damn, Cyprian Ekwesi did that. And I read that book when I was like 8. Because that was a children's book. Like, Nigerian kids read that and we had no idea. And I'm like, I was so blessed with the books I got to read as a child. Wow. And then finally, there's the Naughtiest Girl in School series by Enid Blyton. Elizabeth Allen was a brat, and just seeing her grow through the series up until, because I read that series up until The Naughtiest Girl Becomes a Monitor. Like, those were the 3 books that were available when I was growing up, and I loved it. I read them back to back. I connected so much with Elizabeth Allen, even though I was rooting for her to grow and develop as a character, and she did, and it was very satisfying. And that was the very first set of Enid Blyton books I read, after which I of course read, Magic Faraway Tree series. I read her famous 5 series, Secret 7, Adventurers 4, Children of Cherry Tree Farm, Children of Willow Farm, the Twin St. Clair series. I read her Mallory Tower series. Every single book, like every single Enid Blyton book I could read, I consumed, because when I was growing up, that was the book majority of us were reading. We traded in Enid Blyton books like they were currency. So yeah, I think that's where I'm going to stop. Those are 10 books that made me a reader. If I did not make if a book I read as a child, if you did not make this list, know that I read it like when I was more preteen than I did because I read Chronicles of Narnia series when I was preteen. The same thing with the series by J.K. Turflin. And the Nancy Drew series, Nancy Drew, Hardy Boys, I read like preteen as well. So these were the books I read as a child, and they made me a reader. By the time I got to all those other books, I was already solidified as a reader, and I've still not read the Percy Jackson series. I need to read. I'm planning on reading them this year. So yeah, those are the books. Those are 10 books that made me a reader. Once again, if you've gotten to this point and you have not dropped a comment with regards what book made you a reader, please pause and do so right now. If you enjoyed this video, as always, do not forget to give a big thumbs up. Check out my other videos. Subscribe if you want to. And if you do decide to subscribe, do not forget to click on that notification bell. So after you've hit subscribe, click on the bell so you can turn all notifications on so you don't miss any of my new videos. I make new videos every Wednesdays and Sundays, and I'll see you soon. Until then, stay passionate, love books, love yourself. Bye.